Good afternoon, Stampers. It's Debbie with Stamp It with Debbie, and I would like to welcome you to my Facebook Live on this Wednesday afternoon. It's a nice fall sunny day here in Michigan, and I'm hoping wherever you are is also a nice sunny day for you. If you'll give me a minute here so I can set up and just make sure that we're live here. If you'll give me a minute here so I can All right, looks like we're live. If you're joining me, if you would just leave a comment, let me know where you're joining me from. That would be great. And I'm just going to give it a few minutes. Hello, Diana from North Carolina. I'm glad it's a sunny day for you there. It's a little on the chilly side here in Michigan, but not too bad. I went out without a jacket. I probably should have worn a jacket and flip-flops. I'm still on Florida time, so I'm probably going to need to put my flip-flops away really soon. We'll just wait a few minutes and see if anyone else joins in. And I'm trying out some new lighting today. It's still looking like it's a little shadowy, so looks like I'll still need to play around with that just a little bit, but you'll still be able to see what I'm doing, so that'll be okay. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started because I have 3 fun projects to share with you today using the Dashing Deer stamp set from the Stampin' Up! Holiday Catalog. And I wanted to show you 3 different ways to use the set because it does come with framelits and the stamp set. So first of all, I'll show you a couple things, then I'm going to go show you the framelits that it comes with. This is the stamp set, and this is probably one of my favorite deer. I'm still trying to figure out how. So when you ink it up, and you'll see today when we ink it up, say I'm using Night of Navy, it gives you a really dark image and a really light image where the scrolls are. So you'll see how beautiful that looks. So that's the stamp set. It has some really nice sayings. These are the 3 projects we're going to be working on today. So you can see we have 3 different deer images on here. And then this is the farmhouse paper we're going to be using today. And I really love this paper. I'm going to try to turn it over a little bit so you can see. I did already use up one of my pieces. This one has some stripes on it, some stars. This one has some red checks. There is another piece, and I only have a teeny little piece left, but because I used it for another project. But this is one piece, and on the back are some garden green stars. And then we're going to be using this plaid today, and there's green stripes on the back. So that is the Farmhouse Designer Series paper. And then I wanted to show you the framelits. They're called Detailed Deer, and this does come as a bundle, and it can save you 10% if you order them together. And so it has 2 deer. It has this deer, like, that kind of reminds me of the Dashing Deer, and very detailed horns or antlers. And then this one is the one we're going to be using, let's see, here. So it's more of a stationary deer. It also has several flowers. So this flower is a little more detailed. This one is just a little more plain, and it comes with several of each of those. So if you are cutting several of them, you don't have to run them through one at a time, which I think is a very nice thing that Stampin' Up! Did for this pack. It also has this little scroll, and I'm going to grab one that I cut out so you can see. It's this little scroll, and you get 2 of those. And this is what it looks like when it's cut out. It's beautiful. Just would add a little bit of detail. So that's the scroll. And then also for this card here, you can stamp these deer. Now the Dashing Deer does not have a stamp that coordinates, but this deer does. And these 2 deer also do. So instead of just stamping on that card we're doing today, we could have cut them out, but I wanted to show you a few different ways in case you don't want to get the framelits, you just wanted to get the stamp set, I wanted to show you that you could do either. I recommend getting both, but some people just want the framelits, some people just want the stamp set. So it's all in what kind of card you want to create. So let's put this aside, and I need to get that one out because we're using it today. And let's get started on our cards. This is the first one we're going to make. I also wanted to remind everyone very quickly, if you make a purchase today of $30 or more through my online store, and you're going to find that at stampitwithdebbie.stampinup.net, and you use this hostess code, I'm going to send you everything you need to create these cards. Now, it won't have the stamped images, but anything that's punched out, or like the designer paper, the rhinestones, you'll get all of that. So this is the first card that we're going to make, and this one uses the stamped image of the deer, and then we're also going to cut him out. So let me grab my supplies really quickly. I forgot I needed this other reindeer framelit. All right, what you're going to need for this card is a piece of Very Vanilla cut at 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. You're also going to need a piece of Designer Series paper cut at 4 by 5 1/4. Another piece of Designer Series paper. This is cut at 3 1/4 by 5 1/4, and this piece is cut at 3 quarters, not 3 1/4, 3 quarters by 5 1/4, and this one is cut at 3 quarters by 4. You also need, I have used the, in a couple of the projects, the layering circle framelits, and you get 16 pieces in here. Some of them are scalloped circles, as you can see, and some are just regular circles, and those are all coordinating. And that's what I've used here. So you just need to cut out a circle that coordinates with the scallop. And I use the largest for both of these, the largest scallop and the largest circle. And then you also need a piece of paper cut at 3/4 of an inch by 3 1/4 for this greeting here. And then you're going to need a piece of scrap Very Vanilla to do your reindeer. So let me get the stamp here. We're going to use Cherry Cobbler for this reindeer. So I'm just going to ink this up. I'm going to move those aside because I don't want to take a chance to get any ink on this. And there you go. That's what it looks like. So I don't know if you can see how just stamping it with the Cherry Cobbler made it really light and super light in some spots, dark in other spots. It's beautiful. All right, and then I'm going to get my Big Shot here. And we're just going to cut the reindeer out. And you can use the magnetic plate. You can also use the precision board. I usually just use my regular Big Shot standard plate that comes with the Big Shot. And this should just pop right out here. Whoops, gets a little tangled up in his antlers. And I'm going to use my piercing tool. There's just a few little pieces right here that get caught up, so I'm going to poke those out. And then for this card, we're ready to assemble. Oh, let's go ahead and, I forgot, we need to stamp our greeting on here. So we'll, again, want to have our Cherry Cobbler ink. And I think that I will cut the banner on the end. I'm just going to show you. If you've already seen this, it'll just be a reminder. This is how I cut a banner. You can use the banner punch, but if you don't have it, just cut up the middle and then cut from the side into that center cut that you did, and one more time, and then you have a perfect banner every time. So for this banner, I'm going to have it face off to the right, and I'm going to take this off camera because I know that I will put my head in there and I'll make it crooked. So happiest Christmas wishes. And the other thing we're going to need, well, I thought that I colored them, but I did not, so let's color some more. I'm going to use my Stampin' Blends marker, the dark Cherry Cobbler, and I'm going to color 3 of these in so that it matches my card perfectly. I'm going to set those aside for just a minute to let them dry, because they're alcohol-based markers. They'll dry very quickly, so by the time we get our card put together, it will be ready to put those on there. We're going to use our bone folder and fold our card in half here. I'm going to wipe my stamp off real quick before I stick my hand in it. That would be really bad. Alright. Seems like every time I'm working with red ink, I end up getting it all over, and I'm trying really hard not to do that. So here's our card base, and I'm going to take my piece of designer paper and just put that on the front of the card, leaving an even border all the way around. And then I want to take my pieces of designer paper and put a little bit of adhesive on. Gives a little bit of a contrast, being this is the color that's on the back of what's on the front there. I like to coordinate them that way sometimes. Alright, and now for these 2 pieces, I'm just going to adhere the Very Vanilla circle to the top of the Cherry Cobbler scallop. And then I'm going to use a couple dimensionals on the back of that just to pop it up a little bit. And just put it right there on the card. And now we're going to attach our reindeer. And there's a couple different ways that you can do this. I have I think today I'll just use this. I have a 2-way glue pen. Stampin' Up! Doesn't sell this anymore. You could also use Tombow glue. I had to make sure the adhesive was working. Now the deer feet aren't on the paper all the way down, and that's okay. So we'll just put adhesive on. Because it's lifted up with a dimensional, it will still, that didn't take very well. Okay, I'm going to use the Tombow glue because that didn't come out very well, and I don't want to take a chance that it's going to fall off. So I'm going to use the Tombow adhesive. And then we'll just put him right there in the center. And like I said, the antlers will hang off just a little bit, and that's okay. The feet will hang off just a little bit. That's okay. So the next thing we want to put on is our greeting. And we're just going to kind of stagger this down here at the bottom. And then well, I think, there we go. I found it, my piercing tool. And we're just going to put those 3 rhinestones that we colored right on here. And there we go. So this is the first of the 3 cards. And like I said, I wanted to show you different ways to use the stamp set. So this one is that reindeer that I showed you. This one here, and we used the framelit that coordinates with it, this here, and cut it out. Now you could just use the stamp set and stamp on a plain piece of paper, the very vanilla. I could have made it a little bit bigger and just stamped on there, and I wouldn't have had to cut it out, but I like the way it looks cut out. So that's how we use this one. I'm going to put this aside, and I'll grab the supplies for the next one, and I'll leave you with the hostess code while I get those items around. All right, this one is going to be on Sahara Sand. And we don't need too many items for this. All right, we are going to need a piece of Sahara Sand cardstock for our card base, cut at 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. I also took a piece of Sahara Sand and cut it at 4 by 5 1/4, and I put it through the Big Shot with the swirls and curls embossing folder. So I wanted to show you, I told you last week that it had 2 very different sides. So this is one side, and then when you turn it over, it just gives you a very different side. You can see this part is down on this side, it's raised on this side. I like both sides, and the other one I used to face up, so this one I'm going to do face down. You also need a piece of designer paper, and we're going to again use that plaid, and this is cut at 2 inches by 5 1/4. We need another scallop circle with the coordinating circle on top, and again this is the largest in the set. And then we also need some of the gold metallic edge ribbon, and we of course will need our reindeer stamps, and we need Sahara Sand ink, and we need cherry cobbler ink. So I think the first thing that we'll do is I'm going to stamp my reindeer on this using Sahara Sand. I forgot to mention we also need the Stamparatus. I'm using the Stamparatus live for the very first time. I'm hoping all goes well because I haven't used it a whole lot, but I do. When I had this card, I thought, oh geez, this is the perfect card for that. So I'm going to ink up my deer, and I'm just going to stamp them right in the center. Okay, they're pretty light, and that's what we want. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring the Stamparatus in. And I just realized that I don't have all the pieces of it, but so these are removable, and it can just go on just like this. There's another one that goes here, so you can have several different stamps inked up if you're doing a card, if you wanted to do several layers. So I'm just going to put this here, and I did this earlier, so I put a piece of washi tape so I knew exactly where to line my circle up. And you could use the grid lines if you're doing a square to make it very easy to know where you want it. So I'm just going to bring this over and make sure it's where I want it to be. And then I'm going to, so I also, when I put this on, let me take this off so maybe you can see. There are also grid lines on here, and sometimes the red rubber stamps are not on there perfectly. So I would recommend looking at your words and seeing where they line up with the line on the grid. That's what I did today. So I'm going to bring that over there, and I'm going to use cherry cobbler ink. I'm hoping you can see this. I'm going to ink this up, and so you can see where this would be very helpful if you were making the same card over and over. You wouldn't have to keep re-inking. Bring it over. I'm going to stamp it down. There's my thought. So if I wanted to make 20 of these cards, I could very easily ink this up, bring it over, stamp, stamp, stamp. And I could also put my reindeer on there. You saw how I had them both on this block together, but I could have put them on one of the other plates and then brought that forward and did the reindeer, brought this one over to do the verse. But I had already positioned them on here and I didn't think about putting them on the Stamparatus. So that's the Stamparatus. I am going to wipe this off so it doesn't get on the inside there, the ink. And this tool is available in the annual catalog. So for this one, here's the card. We're going to just adhere this right to the scallop circle. And I'm going to give you a close-up look. Isn't that so pretty? You can just see the reindeer just behind, and then the cherry cobbler is dark enough that you can still read all the words, and it makes a really simple but beautiful card. We're going to use our bone folder to make sure we have a nice crease on our card. And then we're going to take our piece. Normally I would advise you go ahead and stick this down, but we're going to adhere this piece to this, and then I'm going to show you how to put the ribbon on without going all the way around the card. Okay, so, whoops. We have this on. We're going to make sure that it's good and stuck because there's a lot of dimension here on this piece that we put through the embossing folder. I just need my paper snips. So now what we're going to do, I'm going to show you how to do kind of a fake tie. So normally you might think you have to go all the way around the inside of your card and then tie a knot. And that takes up a lot of ribbon and it makes the inside bulky. So what I'm going to show you today is just put this on the front of your card and cut it a little bit over. So you can see it's maybe about an inch or so on the other side. Very carefully holding it over that seam, the dividing between the two. And now you're going to put a really strong adhesive here. You could use tear and tape. You want to make sure that it's not going to come off of there. Okay, there's your piece of ribbon on your page. We're going to deal with the knot right here in just a minute. So let's go ahead and put some adhesive on here. And again, I would put plenty of adhesive because it has a lot of texture to this. So you want to make sure it's going to stick to your card really well. Go ahead and put that in the center of your card. And then this piece here is going to go on with dimensionals. So I'm going to grab a couple of those. And I'm going to just put this right on here. Now we need our ribbon again. We're going to cut a piece that's about this long. I can't even guess how long that is, a couple inches, maybe 3 inches. Alright, since we didn't put any adhesive on the front of this ribbon here, we're able to very easily go up underneath it. And then we're just going to tie a knot. Okay? And then just adjust it around a little bit. Then use your scissors and cut the edge of the ribbon off just to give it a little cleaner look. And there you go. 2 beautiful cards all ready to go for Christmas. And I think this is a nice, it's a very simple card. It can be a very masculine card. It's just very traditional kind of card to me. So there's that one. And let me get the third one. All right, this is the third one. And this one, so again, this one that we just did, there was no framelit cutting at all. We just used our stamps, but again, remember, These two deer do have framelets. You could cut them out to use them for other cards. If you wanted to put another little deer here, maybe looking up at the other ones, you could do that. This deer is facing this way, but remember when you cut it out with a framelit, you can reverse it once you cut it out, and so the deer could be facing the other way. This deer is cut with what I call the dashing. So this is the one we used the first time. He's kind of just standing there. This is the dashing deer, and I think he's very beautiful cut out in the foil papers, but he could be cut out in any. He does not have a coordinating stamp in the stamp set. He's just the framelit alone. So this one, we are going to need a piece of Real Red cardstock cut at 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. A piece of designer paper cut at 2 inches by 5.5 because we want it to go the whole length of our card. And then for this one, I use the layering ovals instead of the layering circles. So it's the same concept. You get 16 dies, and they have coordinating scallops, ovals, and just plain ovals. The other thing we're going to need is some of the cotton ribbon that's in the Christmas catalog, and that's in red. And we're going to need some Real Red ink, and we're also going to use the stamp set that says Happiest Christmas Wishes one more time. Alright, so I think let's start with, I'm going to grab a piece of scrap paper here. We're going to start with this, and you can see in the background that I just randomly stamped, just to give the card a little bit of texture so that the piece of paper wasn't really plain. And I'm just going to vary it just a little bit. Again, you could use your Stamparatus for this very easily. Mine got a little bit crooked, but I don't think that it's going to matter at all. So we're all done with the ink. I'm going to set that aside for just a minute, and we're going to cut out our reindeer. Grab the big shot here. And we're just going to place him, or her, I guess it's him because he's got antlers, I guess, right on our piece of silver foil paper. And we're going to run it through. And I'm going to run it through backwards and forward. I also do have a little piece of paper shim in mine because I know that mine needs that. You have to be careful how much of a shim. Mine is just a little piece of cardstock. What I just did there was, I'll show you in just a second. Let me get this through. So I like to run it through 2 times going this way, and then I actually take it out and turn it this way. It just puts a little bit different pressure because the Big Shot has different pressure all across the roller bar under here, so it just gives a little bit different pressure on the Big Shot so that you're not going to have to fight with the pieces. And see, this one just came right out. And before I take it out, there are a few little pieces that pop out. I'm going to use my piercing tool for that. And then just carefully poke one of the holes, and be real careful because the antlers are very delicate. And there is that part. So we're ready to assemble. We have our card base, again, Real Red card base, cut at 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. We're going to do one of those faux bows again on this one. So this actually is cherry cobbler, but I've used Real Red, and it coordinates just fine because it has the gray granite in there, and I think that it looks just fine. So we're going to cut a piece that's a little bit longer than our card. We're going to turn this over. And adhere those two ends down very well. Okay, and then let's go ahead and put some adhesive on this piece, and we'll get it put down, and we can do the rest of our bow in just a minute. I usually try to get a little bit of adhesive on those ribbons just to stick that down. If you're watching and you like these projects, if you'd just give me a thumbs up or a smiley face, that would be great. I would greatly appreciate that. And don't forget to share so that your friends can also see it. And also let me know, if you would, if there's a certain set that you would like me, if I have it, I would be happy to go ahead and do a project with it. If you would let me know if there's a certain set you would like to see me do something with, I can definitely try to do that for you. Once again, we just need a little piece of ribbon. This piece, I cut this one a little bit long, but that's okay. We're going to adhere this with a couple dimensionals. And then our reindeer, I'm also going to put him on. Whoops, I missed a little piece of punching a piece out. We're going to put him on with the multi-purpose adhesive. Just stick him right on the front here. And then last thing we need to do is tie our bow. And then we just need to cut the edges off at an angle a little bit. Now if your bow doesn't stay straight, you can put a little dimensional underneath, a glue dot underneath here, and that will make it stay a little bit straighter. And then that one I'm going to just tuck underneath. This one, I think I got this piece over a little bit further, but so there is that card. So I'm going to bring back the other one so you can see all of them. And here's the third one. So again, if you would like to place an order through my online store, you can visit me at stampitwithdebbie.stampinup.net. And if you use this hostess code and you place at least a $30 order, I will mail you the make and take kit for these 3 projects. I hope that you have enjoyed today's Facebook Live. And again, leave me a comment if there is a certain stamp set that you would like to see me make something with. And if I have it, I'd be happy to make something. If not, I'll try to connect with another demonstrator and see if I can find some samples for you. I hope that you have a great day, and I appreciate you so much stopping by today. Thank you for stopping by, and we'll see you again soon.